Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity based here in Leeds, England, and we help people who are facing the end of their lives or dealing with the bereavement to write and record an original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can visit our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. The podcast features songwriters. Each episode I have a different guest on. I asked them to share with us one of their songs. We have a chat about how they wrote it. I asked them to share with us a songwriting tip, and I also asked them to share a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Gilmore and Roberts, who are a fantastic duo, and husband and wife, Jamie and Katriona. And Jamie is actually one of the songwriting team here at Swan Song. He did a lot of great work with us over the last year or so. This episode we talk a lot about their writing together. And there's loads of really interesting things in it. I'm sure you're really going to enjoy it. If you do, please like, share and subscribe to the podcast. We've got lots more great guests coming up that you're not going to want to miss. Without further ado, here's Gilmore and Roberts on the Swan Song Project Podcast. Okay, today I'm here with Gilmore and Roberts. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we're looking forward to speaking to you. So I should give first names as well. So this is Jamie Roberts. Jamie's also one of the songwriting team here at Swan Song and did a lot of great work for us over the last year or so. We might talk about that briefly through this episode, but we're mostly here to talk about their music together. And this is Jamie's wife, Katriona Gilmore, who is the first time we've actually met. I've heard a lot about you through Jamie, so it's nice to actually meet properly. And we're going to talk about some of their music today. So this is Swan Song Podcast. If anyone's new to the podcast, we do it in 3 sections. First, we're going to have one of my guest songs. I'm going to talk about how they wrote it. And then in section 2, I'll ask them for a songwriting tip. And then in section 3, we're going to talk about songs that are meaningful to both Jamie and Katriona in relation to bereavement in some way. So over to you now. Which song of yours have you chosen to share with us today?
We've chosen a song it's the opening track actually from our most recent album that just came out a few weeks ago. I'll give a bit of backstory to the song because it's a song called I Burnham Burnham, which is based on a story which I came across, a true story about an Aboriginal activist in the 1980s on the 200-year anniversary of the first fleet of British ships arriving in Australia. So 200 years to the day, this Aboriginal Australian activist, Burnham Burnham, travelled to England and stuck an Aboriginal flag in the beach in Dover and read out a big declaration, essentially claiming ownership of Britain on behalf of the Aboriginal people as a way of sort of shining a spotlight on the history surrounding it all. And I just thought, what a great thing to do and a great way of raising people's awareness. And so I wrote the song based on that.
Brilliant. So we'll have a listen to it now. So this is I Burnham Burnham.
I'll make a stand, 'cause well within these weathered hands, the ancient blood, the motherland, a tired axe to grind. Our forefathers found a way, for centuries had been okay. In 1788, a day would change it for all time. Ships arrived upon our shore, the very worst of men aboard, and brought us strife, disease and war, secured our great decline, calling it benevolence, superior intelligence, but it's ignorance and arrogance to try to fix what's fine. So now I'm here to claim this country as our own. Do not fear, we'll teach the ways we did things back at home. before you came with your boats and guns, seizing what you thought you'd found. Now see the tables turn around, 'cause our flag is in your ground. So now we rule, you'll understand. The natives of this curious land will learn to live by our command and take our mother tongue. But none of them shall come to harm, no children torn from mothers' arms. Where you brought chaos, we bring calm, with earth to be at one. So now I'm here to claim this country as our own. Do not fear, we'll teach the ways we did things back at home. Before you came with your boats and guns, seizing what you thought you'd found. Now see the tables turn around, 'cause our flag is in your ground. And guns, seizing what you thought you'd found. Now see the tables turn around, 'cause our flag is in your ground. I'm here to claim this country as our own. Don't fear, we'll teach the ways we did things back at home. Before you came with your boats and guns, seizing what you thought you'd found. Now see the tables turn around, 'cause our flag is in your ground.
Okay, brilliant. That was I Burn and Burn 'Em by Gilmore Roberts. Yeah, it's a really powerful song. I really love it, and so I guess it's up to you where we. I don't know, should we decide to start on where to start on the. Let's start with the story. I guess so. You say you just heard the story, and then you were inspired to tell it in song.
Yeah. I suppose as an act, it's something that we do quite a lot. Is that we do a lot of original songs that are more sort of outward looking. So like a lot of people write songs about themselves or like how they're feeling about stuff. I think quite often we draw inspiration from things that we encounter outside of ourselves, like interesting stories or interesting people or interesting encounters that we might come across.
And true stories for me are the thing that make me really excited and make me think, wow, I can't believe that. And and there's so many stories that we've discovered over the last 15 years or so, that we've thought, why has nobody heard this story before? Or why haven't I heard this story before? This will make a great song. So
and I think it's sort of presenting it as a song is a way of sort of delivering that story to a wider bunch of people who would not have come across it before, but presenting it in a way that might draw people's attention to it. Otherwise, they might have just sort of skipped past it or whatever, you know, they might not have encountered it in any way whatsoever. But I think it sort of draws on that influence from traditional folk song, the sort of storytelling element as well. But yeah, and we've just found that works for us and it resonates with our audience as well. And they've taken a lot from it. We get a lot of people saying how much they enjoy all the stories that we sing about.
Although there's only so much that you can put into a song before it gets too long, I think. And there's only so many details you can fit in. So Jamie keeps joking on stage that we need to make a further reading pamphlet to hand out at gigs.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's like certain songs we've got where we might have read an entire book about the subject in terms of researching the subject that we're trying to write the song about. But then you've got to try and condense that down to like 3 verses or whatever. Yeah. You can only get in the sort of very minimal details, like the most important things to sort of get the point across. But yeah, there's so much more that could be said.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant tradition, isn't it? And I was just thinking then as you were talking about like I guess one of the ways of like obviously it feels like such an honor as well to have a story cemented in a song. Yeah, it feels like such a kind of like a nice way of doing something. And that lots of people who actually lots of your fans and people in general that might come to something for the music and then not expect to learn so much that you don't just get the entertainment, you get an education as well in some ways. Are the particular themes of things that appeal to you story wise? Is it like any story that grabs you, or are there like particular types of stories that particularly that you feel like you're drawn to? And I guess are there particular areas where they tend to come from, or is it very varied?
I would say we often find out about these things through the internet because such is life these days. But quite often sort of things pop up on your Facebook feed that are not things that you have actually liked or followed, but just suggested posts. Sometimes I get things from like weird fact page or history fact page or something, and it will come up with something and I think, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's like, I wouldn't say that we're in any way like a sort of political act or anything, but I think sometimes you're sort of drawn to stories and people that sort of align with your sort of social outlook as well. So I think sometimes there is a sort of socially conscious element to some of the stories that we pick up on, just through a natural course, really, because that's what we're drawn to, and it's nice for us to be able to then sort of present that to other people as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think generally though, I think we just get them from wherever, you know, like we've got a song on the new album that was came from a Book of Darwin Awards, and I just read it and I just thought, you know, that's prime folk song material. Yeah, but why not?
It's I love that, like the little spark of like just, you know, like just when something just appears and it's like, I don't know if you said this is what sometimes ask questions on this podcast. What like I feel like are kind of almost like impossible to answer because it's like, you know, some kind of difficult feeling. But like, so I can kind of picture it of what it feels like for me when like you hear something or you see something, you're like, oh, that would be cool as a song, but you don't know what the song's going to be like. But there's just like there's something in that. Is there anything like? Do you kind of, I guess you know what that feels like? Have you got anything like, I don't know? Can you describe it in any way what that's like for you? When is there anything in particular about it where it's like, oh, that would be cool?
Yeah, it's sort of it's an exciting, for me anyway, it's like an excited feeling knowing that there's something that I can delve further into and get my teeth into, and that I can do some reading around and some extra research about it, and then the tricky bit of trying to work out which bits I can fit into the song and how it will go.
Yeah, and I know that, like, I know you've said the same as well, that once you do have that initial spark, we've both often just had that idea in the back of the mind for quite a long time before even sitting down to try and do anything with it. To just let the sort of idea stew for a while and
sort of
you subconsciously explore it in different angles, I think, while it's there.
Yeah, exactly that, sort of turning it round in your head to see it from every side and think, right, how can I come at this?
Yeah, because I think, especially when it's a specific story, like, it's so different to writing a song that's like a fairly sort of open song, like subject-wise. You can be sort of quite ambiguous about what you're trying to say. You don't have to be quite explicit with it. I think when it's a story that you're trying to tell the story, you're sort of limited in some ways as to you've got to get certain points in so people follow that story. And there's obviously loads of different ways you can present that, like, is it going to be from somebody's point of view, or is it going to be like a narrative? Are you going to do it as a sort of narration?
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of things to consider.
Yeah, it's a fun process, isn't it? So you mentioned a bit about you do a lot of research. And am I right? Do you write separately most of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that is on the to-do list, is to try and actually this far into our career together, to try and actually write something together. Not really done that at all so far.
Yeah.
I got quite close to it a couple of years ago because I started a song and then got stuck, but I liked the idea and I thought, oh, maybe I'll give that one to Jamie and see if he can get any further with it than I could. But then I just didn't give it to you, so I still haven't done it.
Yeah, I think what we find we end up doing is we write the lyrics and the sort of the bare bones, like the chord outline, separately, but then we'll spend quite a lot of time working on them together, and they do sometimes end up changing quite a lot in that process. So I think that's where the sort of collaborative element has come in terms of sort of shaping the arrangements and sort of creating the tracks as opposed to just the tune and the melody and the words.
It's like the skeleton of the song. Yeah. That's really interesting. Do you have similar processes, or are there any kind of main differences in the way Jamie writes a song compared to the way Katriona writes a song?
I think I would say we're probably quite similar in the process wise, in that I think we both sit on the idea, as you already said, for a while before we sit down and try and write it, and then it's maybe come up with a little phrase to start with, or a sort of vibe for the song, and then come up with a little phrase to start it off, which could be the verse or the chorus. But I reckon that the main difference is that you can often hear exactly how you want certain elements of it to sound.
Yeah.
You've got this sound in your head, and so Jamie will quite often tell me what he imagines the fiddle part will be or whatever, whereas I often don't know how definitive in mind, so then we have to go through lots of different options, and I'll say, no,
that's not it.
I don't know what I want, but that's not it.
Yeah.
That's not it. Oh, that's a bit closer to possibly what it might be. And so I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think the bit that I think's a bit different is that I think you're naturally better with words than I am. I say naturally, I mean you do a lot more reading than I do, so it's understandable. But I think I find it as much as I enjoy it, I find it quite a laboured process getting it to a point where I'm happy with how my words sound, and I end up writing lyrics with like thesaurus.com, rhymezone.com, dictionary.com, all up on the screen at the same time, and just sort of checking words as I'm going and sort of trying to find ways of wording things that I might not use conversationally, that wouldn't come naturally for me to speak, but ways that I like to hear songs presented in a way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and you manage to use much fancier words in your songs.
Thesaurus.com.
Big shout out to thesaurus.com.
Sponsorship coming this way.
Yeah, because I mean, there's some interesting words in the I Burn and Burnham song, isn't there? Like, I also think it's like, so it's not so interesting words in terms of like normal speak, but in words that you don't necessarily always hear in songs. You know, some of the rhymes that you have in it. I can't remember the exact ones now. There's the one about publicity and history, isn't there? One of the rhymes near the end.
Yeah. What is it? I can't remember the lyrics now.
Yeah, but there's that one, and there's another one in one of the earlier verses as well, where it's, you know, like, again, just kind of words that you don't often hear in songs, but
the benevolence and ignorance and arrogance and all that, trying to fit that stuff in.
Yeah. Is that something?
Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, is that something that? So is that something you say you like in other people's songs, and is that something that you like the challenge of when writing?
Sometimes, yeah, and I think sometimes it comes down to like trying to find a word that can say more than the description of that word, if you know what I mean. Trying to find sometimes I know what I'm trying to say within a line, and you've got to try and condense it into so few syllables.
And also,
it's finding a word that can do that sometimes.
By this point, you've already set the sort of rhythm
the
and
meter.
Rhyme scheme. Yeah, the meter. And I know me and you have both come up against this before, where you come up with quite an interesting or different meter or rhyme scheme, and you think, yeah, this is great, I love this. And that's only the first 2 lines of the song, and then you think, oh, now I've got to work out how to do that for the whole rest of the verse, and then twice more.
Yeah, so you're sort of backing yourself into a corner where you've got to try and keep up this rhyme scheme. But yeah, it's a challenge, but it's good.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite things with song. And I used to love, particularly if you'd get like something where it was like just a particular like phrase that you really liked, and particularly if it was something that was quite quirky and weird, then you'd find a tune for it and you'd be like, oh great, I've got it. But then you've got to like, well, how do I build something else around this using like 2 internal rhymes and a 4-syllable word here? But I just love the kind of puzzly element of that.
Jamie loves an internal rhyme.
The favorite one for that is Blinded by the Light, the Springsteen / Manfred Mann song. You know that one?
No, I probably heard it. I can't think of it.
Yeah, Springsteen wrote it. It was off his first album in '73, but then Manfred Mann covered it and had a big hit with it. But each lyric is madman, drummers, bummers, and Indians in the summer with a teenage diplomat, in the dumps with the mumps as the adolescent pumps his way into his hat. So it's like 3 internal rhymes, then an end rhyme, and it does that the whole way through the song. Wow. It's just, it's mad. But I remember hearing Springsteen talk about that, being sat there with a rhyming dictionary. Just yeah, crazy piece of writing.
Yeah.
So when you've got an idea for a story that you want to tell in a song, then with the musical element of it, do you have any kind of idea of how that's going to sound based on the story itself, or does that reveal as it goes? Like, do you have
I think sometimes, like, it's good to have a sort of a musical idea that fits with the story, if you know what I mean. Because again, like you're trying to present this story in a way that you want people to get the emotion from it that you're trying to project. And like in the same way that like the music for a TV program, you want it to sort of amplify the emotion of what's happening on screen. And I think it's kind of the same thing, really. You want it to sort of convey the story and the emotion of the story in the way that it's intended. So to that extent, I would say that I've usually got a vague idea of how I want to present it. Doesn't always go directly down that route once you get started, but yeah, usually some sort of rough idea.
Yeah. And how much of it, like, would you write the full set of lyrics and then start adding music to it, or do you do it step by step? Like, you get like the odd lyric and then?
Yeah, I think I usually start with some either at the top of the verse or the top of the chorus, but sometimes I can't tell which one it is until I've written the rest of it, and write. And I usually would just try sort of, I'd maybe come up with a first line or half a line or something, and then just try singing and see what sort of melody comes out, and try a few different things, and then try adding to that line with lyrics, and then the same thing melody wise. So definitely for me, the music and the lyrics have to come together at the start of the song.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same for me as well. You know, I so often end up starting a song and getting a verse and a chorus, getting the sort of the vague idea and rough melody sorted, but then like coming round to doing a second verse is usually an afterthought. Usually it's usually like the end point is getting the second verse.
Do you write, Katriona? So you've played fiddle in the band. Do you play guitar or piano as well? And do you write on them, or do you write just vocally? Or
I usually write on the mandolin. I used to write on guitar before I played mandolin, and I now can't remember how to play the guitar really, because it's been such a long time. I have written a couple of songs on the violin, and usually when I've had like a specific idea of a how I want it to sound, like a riff or a sort of chugging fiddle part or something, then I've written on the violin, but mostly on the mandolin with chords like you would on a guitar.
Yeah. Do you like jam much, the two of you, is just like making bits of music that then you might write to in the future, or does it tend to be like
not much? No, I mean we occasionally having sound checks and stuff, but it's very rare that has turned into a song. But yeah, I mean that's one of those things that now, especially now, it's harder for us to just sit down and jam because we've got a young family, and it's very rare that we get time to do anything. Just the two
of us. Going back to I Burn and Burn, then, so what was the musical process like from this? So you'd got the story, and I guess you kind of found the way you were going to frame it, so you're going to tell it from his perspective and things like that. And then what was like the musical ambition with it? Because it's an interesting arrangement, isn't it? The way
So musically, I wanted it to be like a slow builder, you know, because it's quite a powerful story, and I wanted it to have that powerful element, but at the same time, I wanted it to have this sort of atmospheric sort of element to it. So like the whole first half of it is quite downbeat and quite atmospheric. But yeah, as it goes through the track, it builds and builds and builds to quite a more sort of powerful second half of it. So yeah, that was the intention really, and I wanted it to have, I suppose, kind of like a fairly anthemic sounding chorus, and so that was the intention with the chorus. Just because I think that sort of thing, it conveys quite a lot of emotion. I think if you get that sort of anthemic feel to it.
Yeah.
And I thought for that sort of story, I think it warrants it.
Yeah, it definitely has that kind of feel, like it's powerful kind of like anthemic is the way to describe it, isn't it? That like you can kind of picture someone planting this flag, and it's kind of like
and I feel like there's a sort of element of anger in there as well, which I quite want to get across. So
it's a beautiful arrangement. Really cool song. There was another question I was going to ask you then, but it's just slipped my mind. What was it? Do you always sing the songs that you write, or is there ever any ones where Katriona's written one that Jamie sings, or vice versa? Well, I guess you obviously sing them together, but they lead.
I think we have always done it that the person who writes it sings lead on it.
Yeah. There's one song on the new album where we both sing all the time. Apart from that, it's usually that way around.
Yeah, brilliant. Really interesting. And so that's the first track off the new album. What's the title of the new album?
It's called Documenting Snapshots.
Documenting Snapshots. If anybody wants to check out the rest of the album, they can do. Yeah, listening to it the last couple of days particularly. It's there's a lot of great songs on it, including, I don't know, maybe we should touch on this one briefly. The what's the one about your auntie called, Katriona? Just the title's just.
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, so this one's one. Was that the first single, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you mind just telling the listeners a little bit about that one when we're here?
Yeah, so I lost my auntie Pauline in 2016, and it was quite a sudden cancer diagnosis, and then not long after that she passed away, and it was a big shock for everybody in the family, and I found it really, I think it was the first time that I'd really experienced grief for myself in a proper way. And I wrote a song on our previous album called Things You Left Behind, and I wrote it because I thought it might help me get through it, and I think it did help, and it's certainly been nice to sing that song for the last few years and feel connected to her through singing that song. But since she died, I've had every so often I'll have a dream that she pops up in, and it's never a big deal in the dream. She just comes in, and I see her, and I think, oh, there she is. Oh, this is great. And we have a hug, and we chat, and we never talk about anything big. It's just, just chit chat, and it's just really nice to be with her again. And I thought this must be something that other people have experienced as well, because I imagine that for some people it might be quite painful to have a visit from a loved one in a dream if you can't see them in real life. But I always felt sort of quite emotionally refreshed by the experience. I always felt like it was a positive thing that I got to spend time with her again. So that the song is about that, basically, sort of thinking, well, it's, ideally she'd still be here, but this is better than not seeing her at all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. It's really powerful, and again, I'm sure it's something that resonates with a lot of people, and it feels like one of those topics that's very, maybe not entirely universal, but very, lots of people will be able to connect to it. But isn't a kind of common song topic either. That's they're songs that I love, where it's like something that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I know that feeling, but it's not a song, a common song topic. What was that one like writing, in terms of the personal nature, I guess, compared to one of like another person's story song?
I guess it was more emotional to write, but because I wrote it at a bit of a time distance from when she died, my grief felt very different then to how it did immediately after her death. It felt more manageable, and I felt like I could deal with writing the song at that point, whereas the song that I wrote just after she died, I found really, really difficult to write, and I wanted to write it, but it was hard work emotionally to sit down and think about these things. But it was good, and again, it felt like quite cathartic to write about her and have time spent thinking specifically about her again.
And a way of like keeping her connected. Every time you sing that song now, or
definitely.
It's a beautiful song. And so that's track 2 on the album, isn't it? So if anyone wants to go listen to the album, you can hear the 2 songs we've talked about, 1 and 2. I don't know, let's do a Swan Song plug in here, but that just the way you talk about it then is something that, like, we say a lot in Swan Song, but we think with the bereavement ones of like it's an open call of like whenever somebody's ready. Like, it's not within a year of bereavement, because everyone grieves at different levels, don't they? And like, and obviously, and Jamie's done some songs with us where it's people like very recent bereavements, and sometimes it is people years and years later, and it's like it's whenever that time feels right for you to process it. It's
I know we've we've had several people come up at gigs after we've played that song and say, oh, that that one meant a lot to me, and it made me think about my dad or my brother or whatever. And a friend of ours came to the gig and she lost her mum last year, and she said, oh, I really like that song about your auntie, but and I love that you feel happy to see her in the dream, and that it's not a painful thing for you. And I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I really look forward to getting to that point, and that meant a lot.
Yeah, that is really nice for it to be like an ambition for people to get to that kind of view. Yeah, that's really nice. There's a quote I'm trying to think of that's put into my head as we were talking then, that I'm going to butcher because I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's something really nice, and it's about a way of like, it was like different ways that you can view people who, people who have been a part of your life who've died, and it's just got really annoyed with it. I'm not going to do it justice, but I can't remember who it was who said it either, but them talking about how it's almost like they either haunt you or they walk with you in a different way. And again, there was a really nice way of describing it, and it was kind of to do with that of like whether you, I guess just the way you carry them.
Yeah.
And yet what, I've completely murdered it. Honestly, whoever said it really well. Yeah. Brilliant. Sometimes I get this on the podcast a lot where like there's something you kind of roughly remember something and I'm like, should I even attempt it or should I not? That's one where I probably shouldn't have even attempted it. Let's move into section 2 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests to share with us a songwriting tip. So what would your tip be for us?
Okay, so what I was going to suggest was not being too afraid to take specific ideas from other people, so from music that you like or just from wherever, really, just sort of, I wouldn't say stealing, but just sort of consciously trying out things that other people have done, because I think to some extent that happens organically anyway, because you listen to stuff and you absorb stuff and you subconsciously pick up what you've liked, and that comes out when you're doing it. But I think the thing of doing that consciously as well, and like actively listening to music and thinking, like, what actually is it that I like about this song? Is it the melody? Is it a certain combination of notes over a certain chord? And sort of deep diving into it a little bit and saying, like, yeah, I've pinpointed this thing that I think is quite cool. Can I take it out from that song and put it into a different song, like one of my own songs? And there's so many other variables, like that might be one element, but you could completely change so many other variables to make it a different song. You're not copying the song, you're just taking an idea, which everything has come from somewhere else previously. So it's not stealing, it's just being more active in your influence, I guess. Your approach to taking influence. And I think just sort of generally like being receptive of that as well, like, because I think a lot of people sort of think they can only draw influence from the music that they like, but there's so much good in all music, like just because it's a genre that you might not normally listen to, it doesn't mean that there's not musical things in there that couldn't be taken and put into something that you can create. It can be anything, like you might be like, say if you're watching a film or something and the film score's got a nice melody, you think, oh, that's a great melody, I love that melody. Like, well, what are the notes, what are the intervals, what are the chords? You can sit down and work it out, and can I use that myself, put it into my thrash metal band, would it work? Why not? So I think that would be my tip, is just sort of trying to be proactive in drawing influence from other sources.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good advice. I think it is kind of like for people who are maybe just getting into songwriting, of like, I've got this really clear memory of real when you start learning songs to begin with and be like, oh wait, this is just C, F, and G as well. That last song was just C, and that just kind of blowing my mind. I was like, I thought all the songs had completely different chords in it. And then learning that, like, well, this is basically just the same chord pattern as that one, but it's just slightly faster. This has just got a little slip here. And because the rules are like like official. I mean, like, it's the melody and the lyrics are what are copyrightable, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
And like, so you can borrow the same chord structures and stuff like that. And even like the melodies are like, because you can change them so subtly, I guess, can't you? That
yeah.
And what I was thinking, particularly at the start, like, so I remember doing this a lot, where like I just there'd be a song I liked, and I just like lift the structure basically to my own. But then because I wasn't nearly as good a musician as the person who'd done this one, it was like you wouldn't even know that was what I was trying to do. I was basically trying to write that song, but it comes out so different. And regardless of what level you're at, it's like your individual skills will make it unique anyway.
Yeah, and like we say about lyrics and melody, I mean, obviously you're not going to take a full passage of lyrics and copy them, but in terms of like melody, even like if you use the exact same combination of notes, like you change the note lengths, put it in a different key, or put it in a minor key, or change the time signature or whatever, it sounds like a different song. There's so many different things you can do with that same combination of notes, and even like the melody, if you change the chord sequence under it, it can sound completely different in put in a different context. So I mean, the stuff you can do without feeling like you're actually stealing or copying, because you're not. It's just sort of, it's being creative. Influence, I think.
Yeah, and being like consciously inspired by by things as well.
And also accepting that it's very, very hard to do. I think I can only speak for myself here, but I know when I sit down to write, there's a bit of my brain that's going, come on, let's go for something really original. And I think just letting that go helps a lot, and just going, well, yeah, it's going to be original because it's my song, but there are only so many notes you can use. There's only so many chords you can use, and and there are literally billions of songs that have been written in the past. So there's no way I can come up with anything original now.
And it's that thing as well, isn't it, about like what level of originality people is like comfortable to listen to, isn't there? Like, people like familiarity.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So it's that kind of balance, isn't it, of like having things that people kind of understand as music and kind of like feel comfortable hearing, but don't sound the same as everything else they've heard before. Yeah.
Walking that line, getting the balance.
Yeah. And it was I was thinking, we were talking then about the I love it when sometimes you hear like about a court case, or sometimes there's an Instagram account I follow where it always has these like, did you know this song is the same as this song? And it's like, and most of the time it's like I hadn't put them together at all, that was the same song. And you hear court cases sometimes as well, you're like, is that the same bit? And then when you listen to it in a lot of detail, or it'll be like a particular part of one song that's inspired this other bit. So a lot of time it's really hard to spot. But then I love when you do find them out. So are there any of your ones that you could well, like, this song, this is where I got this musical idea from, that come down on the top of your head?
I could think of like a very minimal example of a song, which was literally just like a rhythmic thing that was I just heard it on another song. We've got a song on an old album called Peggy Airy, and for the middle eight it's just got this sort of rhythm, and I'd just heard it from another band called the Deadly Gentlemen, and they're doing it on like a mandolin in a sort of weird 5/4 time signature, going like and I just thought it sounded great. I was like, right, I'm going to use that. Yeah, that's good. But it's like a completely different song, and it's got a totally different feel to it. But yeah, that's one example that I can think of. Just a rhythmic thing.
That's really good. I think that's really good for people. People like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the whole song structure. It can just be something like that, like just a little particular bit, and it's like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll put that in, and and again, it can play a completely different role in the song than it did in one, but it's just that same bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And how much, I guess, is that something that happens a lot for you guys still? I guess being, like I'm doing this as long as you have been doing it. Is it still something that kind of conscious, like you're hearing new stuff and thinking like, oh, that's
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All the time. Although I readily admit that I don't listen to as much new music now as I used to, and again, that's just a time thing. But yeah, still always got the ears open for these sort of things.
Yeah, and I think also stuff, not necessarily from new music. Like with the song we played at the beginning, "I Burn 'Em, Burn 'Em." It's got that sort of singing bit in it, and I got the idea from that just because I'd recently heard a song by one of my favourite songwriters, a guy called Richard Shindell, and he'd got a song called "Juggler Out in Traffic," and I'd just been listening to that, and it's got this little that's just sung, and I thought, oh, I don't think I've ever had like a little sung motif in a song before. Maybe I'll try that. And I did, and that's what it was. It's a totally different motif, but it was just a similar sort of idea.
Yeah, oh, that's another good example of it as well. Just like that kind of like, yeah, it's not actually it's not the music in terms of the notes or anything, but it's the way of doing like the vocal melodic bit that is a lyrical and
musical idea, I guess.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Jill Hurst, and as a family we have worked with the Swan Song Project to write a song about my husband Paul, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 3 years ago at the age of 59. As music has always been a love of Paul's, and each day continues to bring him joy, writing a song seemed a great way to celebrate what he means to us. We wanted to get over the beautiful, kind man he is, and our memories of our happy times together. This song is perfect, a powerful, poignant and upbeat tribute. Writing our song has been a fascinating and fun experience we will never forget, bringing us closer together as a family and giving us the opportunity to share our happy and sad emotions of this difficult journey. Please donate to the Swan Song Project to help more people write a swan song.
Let's move to section 3 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. And since we've got Jamie and Katriona here, we're going to have a song each from each of them. So what I do here is I put the links in the description. So if you're listening to this podcast or watching it, you're not familiar with the song, you can pause us at any point and go listen to the song and come back and hear what Jamie and Katriona have to say about it. Katriona, do you want to share your song with us first?
Yeah, so the song I picked is by a band called the Stray Birds, who I really like. They actually broke up a few years ago, and this song is called "When I Die," and it's from an album called Magic Fire, and it's a very happy song, just in terms of sort of the chords and the melody. It's all very major key and up tempo, upbeat, but it's a song. Basically, the person telling the story in the song is saying, "When I die, I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to bury me in this place, and I'd like you to dress me this way. And if you're gonna come to my funeral, I want you to come because you liked me, not because you genuinely liked me, not just because you want to say that you went to my funeral and just because you knew me. I only want you to come if you actually liked me as a person, and don't sort of get really upset that I'm not here. Just be grateful for the time we had." And it's just a really sort of positive sort of goodbye song almost. And I think there's quite a few of the Stray Birds songs that make me feel really emotional. And I don't even think it's the lyrics. I think it's just musically there's some sort of chord progressions that they do, that they like doing, that happen quite a few times in their songs, that just push all the buttons for me. And the whole that whole album just makes me want to weep with joy all the way through. But I thought that song, it's, I always think it's that there are lots of sad, and quite rightly so, there are lots of sad songs about losing people, but it's nice to hear one which is a song saying, yeah, it's all good, I'm okay, you'll be okay, let's celebrate it.
Yeah, it's a really powerful song. Really powerful singers as well, aren't they? The voices are wonderful. And one of the things I really like about it is that it's proactive, a proactive song about death. You know, it's like someone who's writing about when they die, rather than so many songs, because and like so much of we come up with Swan Song a lot as well, isn't it? Is that people not wanting to talk about death at all until it happens, and then it's like in that reactive phase, rather than this being like, I know this is going to happen at some point, I want to make my wishes known, make it clear. And and as you say, walking that line between being like positive and celebratory whilst handling something potentially difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
I love the verse about the guitar as well. There's the verse about wanting someone to play the guitar.
I can't remember what, I'll have to look up the words, but about I don't want my guitar to hang on some rich man's wall.
Or fingers to play it every day.
Really. Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe it is the lyrics as well that made me.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. I think so? I was listening to a few times you're preparing to speak to you, so I'm looking forward to listening to more with them, because it's a great song. But I think I read that they each wrote. There it says three of them all sing separately, don't they? And that they each wrote their own part based on what they wanted.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, they each sing a separate verse.
So I think you're telling me something that I had no idea about.
I think
that makes it sort of even more special, because I think for most of their songs, I think there were two main songwriters in the band, and I think they sort of, a bit like we do, they would each write a song and then the band would arrange it, and they took lead on the songs that they wrote. But that song for them is unusual, that there's three of them singing lead on it. So well, thank you for telling me about that.
It might not be true. I'm sure I read that. It might have been a YouTube comment, but
I like it. I'm taking it. It's true.
Yeah, you can always trust YouTube comments, can't you? There's never any false information there. But I thought that was just and that sounded like a cool way to do a song like that. Of like, we've got this theme, this is it. Let's all have our point in it.
And again, it, like you say, it's a universal theme, but it's not something that is often made a song subject.
It's one of the things that we've thought about doing with Swan Song a bit, is having like I was going to like fill in the blank songs, where it is like, here's a template, this is like the kind of common theme, and so it's like very easy for people to just change a few words, and then it becomes personal to them, and that feels like almost the kind of structure that we'd want, where it is like when I die, this is what I want, and then here's a space where you put in what you want. Maybe I should get in touch with them and see if we can steal it. But really good. Over to you, Jamie. Which song did you choose for us for this section?
I chose the song "Meet on the Ledge" by Fairport Convention, which isn't really a song about grief or bereavement or death, really, in any way. It was written by Richard Thompson when I think he was quite young, and like the lyrics are kind of ambiguous, really, as to what they're about. But I think it's become, over the years, like however many years now, like 50 years have they been going, Fairport, and it's become like their anthem, and it's become like a real sort of symbol of remembrance for people who've got lost along the way, and people who've lost people. And they close every gig with it, and they close their festival, Cropredy Festival, with it, and it's quite an emotional thing, really. Like it's become a big sort of like an anthem for people at the festival, and everyone's singing along, and it's a really easy song for people to sing with. But I think especially because the band have been going for such a long time, you know, they've got past members that have died over the years, and they often have things up on the big screen of people who might have died in the past year or previous years, you know. So it's and it's quite an emotive thing.
Yeah,
and also we have a bit of a personal connection with it, obviously, because we sung it with them when we played with them on a tour a few years ago, and sung it with them each night. So that was quite a big thing for us.
Yeah. That's quite an honour to share the stage with Fairport. And it feels like that kind of song that you can imagine being on stage with them. That the song just then takes on your personal meaning. So it can. I imagine it just being one of those songs that there's very, like, when you sing it, it can feel almost like it's your song, that you can kind of enter it in that kind of way. And
and I think the whole sort of, like, the main lyric, the meat on the ledge, has become this sort of symbol for sort of, you know, we've parted ways, but we will meet together again someday, wherever that may be, you know. And it's taken on that life, and I think it's a very common song for people to have played at funerals now.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of one of my, like, all-time favorite songs is "Come On Up to the House" by Tom Waits.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you know that one. Like that's what the tattoo on my arm's from. But that, like, and that was what that always meant to me. Where again, it's like, you know, it's the house can be interpreted in many different ways, but it kind of feels like this, you know, and the lyrics in that's often these hard things going on, but then it's like, come on up to the house. It's like there's this place where you're welcome and you come here, and almost like that's where then, you know. And again, I think that's another one where, like, it could be really written about anything, but a lot of people do see it as that, like, you know,
sort of metaphorical afterlife, as it were.
Yeah. There's a real, like, songs like that are just amazing, aren't they? Where it's like that being artfully vague.
Yeah. That's it. Allow people to interpret themselves.
Yeah, and particularly songs around bereavement. Like quite a lot of the ones we get on for this section of the podcast are ones where it's not about bereavement, but you can completely see how people, you know, view it that way. And I just love it. I think it's so fascinating, and how, you know, a writer can have one idea about what they are writing about, and then the song just take on this whole other world and meaning, really, for lots of people. I've got a quick practical question with that. So you say Fairport always finish with it. Is it normally the end of an encore or the end of a main set they finish with?
It's usually the encore.
The end of the encore. So you always know they're going to come out and do an encore if they've not done maybe on the ledge.
That's it. Yeah. It's always going to close the concert. Yeah.
I always think that with bands where there's like a song like that. Like I saw the Watt Boys a few weeks ago, and they finished the main set and they hadn't done Hole of the Moon. It's like, well, they're definitely going to do an encore because they're not going to leave without doing Hole of the Moon. So you stand back there as long as you want, but I know you're coming back out. They're not leaving until we've heard Hole of the Moon.
We'll indulge you, your little charade of going off the stage and coming back here.
We saw Rich Hall the other week in Leeds, the comedian. He's like one of my favourites, and he's doing his musical stuff as well. But when they finished the set, they kind of stood there, just kind of waving, and then him and his guitar player, like, they just didn't leave the stage. And everyone kept clapping. He's like, normally we will go and stand over there for a few minutes, but we're not going to bother today. We're just going to start again. So, yeah, good way to do it. Yeah, brilliant. Right, well, thanks a lot for doing the show, guys. Really enjoyed speaking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Likewise.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'll put all the links in the description for your website and all your social media and stuff like that, so people can check out the new album. And they're just wrapping up a tour, but I'm sure you'll be gigging again before too long. So people can come and catch us on the road. And Jamie's been doing some great work with Swan Song as well. So if you want to hear any of the songs Jamie's written, there's quite a few on the website now that he's written through the project. So I kind of recommend checking some of them out as well. Thank you very much, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back with another episode soon.